Borderlands 4 is on the horizon, and honestly everything we've seen looks pretty good so far, but it's what we haven't seen that is going to be the focus of this video, primarily the loot. Now, the impact loot has on the game seems to be stronger than ever before, and loot actually seems important again. Even non-legendary weapons look like they're going to be useful this time around, and that is very good. My concern though happens to be with stat rolls on said loot. Now, for those unaware, weapon variety is going to be at an all-time high due to the in-depth part system BL4 is bringing to the series. We're essentially going to be able to mix and match parts from different brands on our guns to create combinations that do more than just make up the statistic breakdown of the weapon. We're going to be able to blend multiple manufacturer traits onto weapons, like having a Jacob's pistol that can use the Dahl throwable reload with Vladoff rockets as an underbarrel, for example. It's pretty crazy stuff, and it looks pretty good, but a lot of people are concerned about the likelihood of getting what you actually want with all the possible combinations there are going to be at launch. But let's be brutally honest with ourselves here. At least in past games, god rolls or even above average rolls on the weapons themselves were never really that impactful. Yes, they made a difference, but unless you have a roll that's abnormally bad, simply having the weapon is usually enough to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve with your build. My real concern is with something that they haven't really shown off yet. It's the class mod and enhancement passives. These stats are so important to improving a build, and this is the stuff people should really be worried about, because any kind of weapon grind you might be dreading as a player, I promise you, the passive stat grind on a class mod or artifact in BL3, for example, is 20 times worse. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's take a look at the Spiritual Driver class mod for Amara in Borderlands 3. And let's say I wanted to use a Soul Render, an assault rifle that shoots skulls that do splash damage, with this class item for a fun run and gun build where I don't really need to aim. I would probably want to find one with a splash damage passive to massively increase the damage I do with the skulls from Soul Render. Now, there are 65 potential passives we can get in these slots, so we have a 1.5% chance of getting it in any of these slots in the first place. Luckily, there's 3 slots, so we have 3 chances at it, so it's closer to 4.6% whenever we get one of these items to drop. But then, we have to factor in the drop chance of the item itself, which is 30%, which would mean that every time we kill this enemy, we have a 1.4% chance of this class mod dropping with splash damage, which would be acceptable if we were trying to get a god roll or something, but this is accounting for only a single passive. Ideally, we would also want something like Dahl damage, along with another damage stat, but trying to get 2 desirable passives or more on a class mod is exponentially harder to achieve and puts you beyond a fraction of a percentage at that point. It's just not feasible to farm out. And going back to the splash damage only argument, it would take around 35 minutes statistically to get one of these to drop from your kill with just splash damage. If it only took you 30 seconds to kill the boss, look at the loot, run back to the Encore machine that'll be present in BL4, and repeat. That's a very generous estimate, by the way. And I don't think the answer is to devalue the loot chase or the value of a god roll drop, but we aren't talking god rolls in this example. We are talking rolls that make a build viable in the first place. If you want that 1 in a million drop to exist, but forever be unattainable so you can get that lottery winner feeling if it ever does drop for you, that's fine. I think it should be present actually, but I think it should only exist for god rolls. So, what are the options? In my eyes, I see 2. We can either limit the passive pool severely by doing away with manufacturer-specific passives, condensing the pool substantially, along with cutting away any useless passives like the luck stat in BL3, or we can introduce an ARPG reroll system into the game, but keep or even expand the passive pool to keep the feeling of the loot chase alive. The reroll system could be facilitated through Iridium, much like anointment rerolls in Borderlands 3, but maybe we could even lock a stat as well to get at least a good 2 out of 3 roll at a reasonable rate. I don't think that this suggestion is as severe or out of character for the series as a crafting system as people have speculated about, so I think I'd personally like to go for option 2, the reroll system. Maybe Gearbox already has something cooked up to address this concern, but all I know is it would not be good to keep it the same as it is in Borderlands 3 and Wonderlands, because the chances you have of getting even decently rolled passives is too low, and instead of feeling joy when you finally get one to drop, you only feel relief. I also think something Borderlands as a series could massively benefit from is placing any degree of a return on time investment when farming. In our previous example, we said that it would statistically take you around 35 minutes to get a minimally viable class mod to drop from that specific source. Imagine farming that long, realistically much longer, and not getting your drop. It feels like you've just wasted a bunch of time, so including something that gives players a sense of progression towards something meaningful during their farms is also important in my opinion, or else players are going to be left with a sense of hopelessness and just not bother with farming at all in the first place. Now, coming up with ideas for this is a little trickier than just coming up with solutions for passive stats, especially since Borderlands 4 is going to be making legendaries actually rare again, or at least allegedly. It's hard as a player to speculate on the possibilities when we don't have much information to go off from what they've shown us so far, but one thing I was thinking of could be bringing back the Iridian Fabricator, otherwise known as the Gun Gun, but change the way it works a little bit. Instead of taking Iridium to make guns, what if it just vacuumed up loot and stored it? Every time you kill your boss and don't get what you want, suck it all up with the gun and start building up a stockpile. Eventually, after amassing hundreds of guns, maybe you can spit out some legendaries, so that at least you're getting something to show for all the time you put into an unsuccessful farm. I honestly think this is one of the core issues with BL3 and Wonderlands, as it drives away some hardcore players, and it's why save editing is so prevalent today. These are just some solutions I've been thinking about for a while, and if you guys have any ideas of your own, please drop them in the comments below. I'm beyond excited for this game to come out, and I'll enjoy it either way, honestly, but I also want it to release in the best possible state, and believe this is something that needs to be addressed in some way in order to achieve that. If you want to have a candid discussion about it, feel free to check out my Twitch in the description below and ask me about it during stream sometime. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'm Haderaxe, signing out. Peace.